angelic comfort. My name is Reneé, and I'm the host of the show. I am so excited this evening. Let me tell you, I can't even begin to tell you, I have author Particia Thompson on tonight, and she has had not just one, but 3 near-death experiences, and she has written all about them. So tonight we're going to be talking to her. We're going to be learning. Have you ever wondered what it's like on the other side? What is it like having a near-death experience? Trisha's going to tell us all about it, one of my angel sisters, and I'm so excited. I can't wait. Really can't wait to talk to her. In the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to do our 3-card pulls. And actually, did I get 3 or did I get 4? I did end up with 3. And we're going to do our weekly affirmation. And then we'll talk to Patricia for a little bit. And if we do have time, then with the callers that have called in during the show who have questions or want to say hi to Patricia or myself, then we're going to maybe do a card pull for 1 or 2 people. So don't be afraid to call in and say hello and ask questions. We encourage it, and we look forward to entertaining and educating you this evening. So we're going to start off with our card pulls, and it was really interesting to see what came up tonight. The first one was suffering in silence. Now, suffering in silence has a lot to do with your own thoughts. Thoughts of negativity. Are you thinking negative thoughts? You know, do you suffer in your own silence is what it's asking. Basically, is when you have negative thoughts about your life and what happens to be going on in your life, it affects you, and you suffer in silence, basically, within your own mind. And it's very important to understand that, you know, you can't do that. Your negative thoughts, you can't let them get the best of you. You need to be positive because you do suffer. You are the one who is making yourself suffer by your thinking patterns. So it's important, very important, to understand that you need to focus on being positive because it does affect you, negativity. It really does. And it pulls you down. It causes depression. Don't suffer in silence. Be positive and realize that those things that have brought upon these negative thoughts and feelings are from your past. And if you cannot, you know, move on beyond that, it just circles and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So even if you're facing these negativities, understand that when you do face them, be positive and face them head on and just go strong. Be strong about it and move forward and remain positive because positivity brings good things to you. Okay? So don't suffer in silence. Don't let this vicious cycle of negativity within your own mind affect you. The next card that I pulled was interesting is envy. And sometimes when we feel things aren't going well in our lives or we want something really bad and we see somebody else who ends up having the things that we want or we wish that we had, we envy them. And again, it's not a good thing because envy is actually a form of jealousy and it causes, again, negative thoughts towards other people. And the thing that we need to realize is that usually when we envy somebody or are jealous of somebody, it's because they may have accomplished something or have something that, like I said, that we want ourselves that we don't have. But the realization is, you know, the truth is that we can all have, you know, and achieve the goals that we want. It's called perseverance and, you know, raising your self-esteem and knowing that you yourself can accomplish this. And so we need to realize that, you know, don't be envious or jealous of other people in their lives for what they have or what they're accomplishing. The thing is that you yourself can do this too. So when you waste your time being envious or jealous of other people, it's a negativity. Okay, and when you put these negative feelings and thoughts not only in your mind but towards other people, we do need to realize that the universe is a mirror, and so what you put out there comes back to you. It comes back to you tenfold. So, again, remain positive. be positive, be happy for other people. You yourself can achieve the goals that you wish to have within your life. It just means work. And those who have achieved their goals and where they are in life have worked hard to get there. So it's not something that's just dropped in somebody's lap. It takes a lot of work. The next thing is freedom. And with freedom, we have choices that we make within our lives. These choices are how we live our lives, our thoughts, our different patterns, our beliefs, and we choose how we are going to be ourselves. Again, it all ties into the other cards that I have pulled. When we talk about freedom, it's basically free will, okay? So when we talk about free will, we can, choose how we want to be and how we want to live our life. It's not anybody else doing it. It's our own doing. So do you like the life you're living? Nobody's making you live it. You're the one who chooses to live the life that you are leading right now. And that's what this card is saying. So they all tie in together, is that the negative thoughts within your head due to your past or maybe even current events affect you. And envy and jealousy is not something that, is something, it's more against you for not feeling that, you deserve the things that you have and you don't have them when other people do. It's something that you need to work for. Envy, negativity, and jealousy are just really something that is within our own mind. And again, free will is that we make these choices. It's up to us. Nobody is telling us how we have to live, how our thoughts are, or anything like that. It's your choice. It's your free will. And again, the universe is a mirror, so what you put out there, your thoughts and your remarks or anything like that, come back to you tenfold, not the other person or the other people. So if you want positive things within your life, then you need to start, thinking and acting positively. And move on beyond your past. Let your past go. It's done. It's gone. Yesterday's your past. Today, in a couple of hours, it's going to be your past. Move beyond that, okay? Make the changes of positivity and the changes that you need to do to make your life the life that you wish. So no envy, jealousy, remove negative thoughts, and, again, free will. Use free will. So we all have our choices. So the affirmation that we have tonight is, I released all negativity within myself and all envy of others. I know that these affect my life and not the other person's or my surroundings. I am the one responsible for my own thoughts and actions with myself and others. I put my trust in God and the angels, for they know me best than anyone else besides myself. Okay, so that's pretty much it for my part of it. Now I'd like to welcome Patricia. Hi, Patricia.
Hi, Reneé. Thank you and your listeners.
Oh, my gosh, you're more than welcome. I'm so glad to have you on the show.
Thank you.
I think this is wonderful. I know you've, wanted to go on other shows and stuff, you were telling me. And, I am just thinking that this is just great that you're on my show. I'm so glad that you accepted.
Well, thank you. I also want to thank my family and my Facebook friends, too. And I would like to tell your audience a little bit about my book, and then I thought I would go into the testimonies of my near-death experiences.
That sounds wonderful.
Okay.
I'll let you lead the way. Go for it.
Okay. I was in an auto accident in 1998, and I ended up and I was a passenger, and I had 21 surgeries and 13 months of physical therapy, and then I lost the use of both arms and hands for 3 years. And chronic pain became my death at that time. This experience of love totally changed my life from the inside out. God seems to stress the importance of two things in life: learning to love other people and acquiring knowledge. The questation of knowledge goes on forever and after life. God sent me back to earth as a messenger with supreme evidence of the fact of everlasting life and the truth of immortality. God showed me his power and his pure love by surrendering totally to him on April 16th, 1998, which brought about a resurrection, and God gave me a new life, physically and spiritually. My life was forever changed by this mystical, life-changing experience. I was allowed to live by God so I could come back to earth and inform people in the physical world what God's world is like. God sent me back with supernatural evidence that would consist of spiritual photographs from God's kingdom that will prove that there is life after death and details of my journey beyond. Everyone is responsible to God for changing the world by changing ourselves. I am sharing God's love for all people who have separated from God, each other, and their self. God's pure love is a love of a unique and profound kind. This loving, luminous, beloved being who embraced me knew me intimately. I was loved by this man of light. God has substance, and he was indescribably wonderful. God's pure love is beyond expression. God definitely exists. I converse with the Lord of light from the time I stood before him until my return. Heaven is a place of beauty and everything new. I was in a paradise of brilliant light, a soothing illumination that bathed me in a love and comfort that made me feel as though I was loved as a newborn child. I was greeted by American pioneers from the early 1800s. The celestial beings from this world of immortal life was made visible to me by God. The celestial bodies was made of flesh and bone. They had a radiant glow to them, and they were spiritually energizing. They were strong and whole and beautiful, and each had their own personality. Communication is an exchange of thought. God's love is somewhat very much like our love, so in length and breadth, in height and depth, it passes knowledge. One cannot see God, but yet he is present. He's only a breath away. My soul has come to know the reality of life and the most highest. When I ask for things, it is for knowledge and light and strength and the ability to continue on, to spread God's love, to tell others the story of my journey to heaven. Everything is new. The celestial air that we breathe, the people we meet, the clothing we wear. We are living a life of beauty. One must open up your heart, which God recognizes in prayer, rising to him from earth. Through this faith, you will be heard. I was taken up and absorbed with God completely in heaven, and something of this nature would be a dream of one's heart's desire. God gave me the wisdom and knowledge and strength and patience to carry out the request that was asked of me by the will of God. I wanted so much to stay in the heavenly realm. Heaven is the place of true beauty and love and all good things. God's love is every emotion and feeling that goes off like bursts of fireworks on the 4th of July. This has been a very humbling experience. When I sat down to write, my story literally wrote itself. I was obsessed with making sure that nothing was missed, and the subconscious mind took over. All the memories arranged themselves almost automatically in proper sequence. In our helplessness or distress, we need to open the door and give God the opportunity to help us. I have been faithful with God, and I feel that I have achieved what God had asked me to do by writing this book, and it gives me great joy to be one of God's chosen ones. And I just want everybody to know that I came back from heaven fully healed from my accident, and I can go on here with the testimonies if that's what you wish of me.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how you were, this whole thing happened. You had the accident and, the paralyzation and everything, and you were in chronic pain. And, I know that we talked about this the other night on the phone, And, my heart goes out to you. I mean, that had to be horrible. And for others that are going through similar things, I think that it's just, such a heart-wrenching thought or experience that nobody wants to go through any of this, Patricia, And I feel that, chronic pain causes much. I believe with people. There's many people within chronic pain out there, and, I just hope that, others know that, near-death experience it does happen, to people who maybe have surgery, open heart surgery. I know for a fact my dad, I was telling you, that he had a near-death experience when he was on the operating table. And I think many people do. And what you're going to be describing tonight is actually fairly similar to what he himself had seen and experienced. And so why don't we, just, kind of get our viewers in a relaxed way to kind of listen to what you have to say. Now, you did have the accident, and it was an automobile accident, and you were in chronic pain.
Right.
And what happened? Can you tell us what happened?
Well, I was a passenger, and there was 3 of us in the vehicle, and one of the the driver was not injured, but the other passenger in the front was. They went through the window, and they had head wounds and stuff, but we were kind of way out in nowhere, and the person that was driving the vehicle kind of miscalculated the curve and went off the road, and finally got the car under control. But by then, it was an older vehicle, and I could not use the seat belt in back, and I was kind of thrown all over the car. And I ended up with a lot of broken bones and nerve damage and things like that. And I ended up and went to 9 specialists because they couldn't detect what was wrong with me. And it was basically the nerve damage, and it was all in the palm of my hands. And the medium nerve was compressed to the lining in both hands, and it went undetected. So all of that damage caused me severe pain, which radiated up the arms, and went into the shoulder and back and neck, and therefore I could not use my arms, and I only could lift maybe 2 pounds, and that was it. And I had home health care for over 3 years, and the pain just got so unbearable that I just finally kept praying to God to take my life, either end this or do something to make me better. And that's when, after 3 years of this, then finally my death came.
Oh, dear. Now, and that was from the chronic pain. Was that just from being kind of like down, or, just being on so much medication that, just everything all together?
Well, finally, the medication was not helping, and my doctor, he would not prescribe anything stronger than he basically could because he didn't want to get me hooked on anything, and so he ended up and sent me to the pain clinic at the hospital, and they did series of surgeries on my neck, which, epidurals and cervical nerve blocks and rhizotomies, and it got to the point where each one was supposed to be lasting longer than what they were, and they were getting shorter and shorter, with the pain was getting worse and worse, where eventually the surgeries weren't working anymore. So eventually that is what happened to me. I just ended up and died.
Oh my gosh!
The pain,
so now,
pain just got so bad.
Now, when you went through this, okay, so you passed on, and do you know the amount of time that you were deceased for?
I was going to tell you, I had my first near-death experience was the end of March of 1998, and it was about 3 weeks before my second death. And my first death, the only thing I can remember is I was going into the archway entrance, which was a passageway into God's kingdom. And I didn't only get maybe about 12 feet in that passageway, and zipping around come my mom around the corner, and she had this big smile on her face, and she had beautiful blonde hair, and she was so young looking, and I described her to my father, and he told me she was 18 years of age. In fact, we found a photo of just exactly what she looked like in that entrance. And the entrance of that passageway, it had large rocks and small and medium-sized rocks that were kind of grayish and brown, and they were cemented into the walls, and the floor was made out of pebbles. And as far as I could see, to the right and to the left of me, there was archway entrances just going on for, I'd say, miles and miles in either direction. And off to the left, there was just millions upon millions of angels that were going in and out of these passageways, and they were like little lights clustered together. But when I was in that passageway, going and getting ready to go around the curve there, going into the kingdom, my mom told me that I couldn't go any further, that I had to turn around and go back. And of course I looked at her like, what, I don't want to go back, because once you step into that passageway, you are totally changed. You're pain-free. What I'm saying is you're like high as a kite. You're high on life in God's kingdom is what you are. And that's what I was talking about. Everything is new, and the cholesterol air that we breathe, and it was just so beautiful. The skies was kind of a pinkish rosette color with a bluish and mixed in with it, and it was just so beautiful. And that was the only thing I can remember with my first near-death experience. And then the second one was on April the 16th, 1998, and it was a holy day, and actually it was around 3:45 to 4 a.m. is what I calculated on a Thursday, and I remember all my details on that. And that was my actual death, and I went to sleep, and I hadn't been getting any sleep for forever. It seemed like maybe an hour, because of the pain and all of the damages from the accident and everything. And I went to sleep, and the next thing I remember is I awoke. And
Are
when
you
I
there?
woke up, I'm sorry. When I woke up, I was in an area that was very small, and I was trying to figure out where I was, and it was kind of a dense whitish black color, and I felt like I was in between dimensions, like heaven and earth, and I felt like I was standing on a line. I call this line the borderline between states, and I had to stand on this line just as still as I could without moving to the right or to the left. And the next thing I knew, there was two light beams, one on each side of me, and they were little clusters of lights grouped together, which they were the angels, and their lights were like the end of a flashlight, about that size, and they had no emotions, or nor did they communicate with me, and they escorted me to the center of heaven, and the speed that we were going was just incredible, and we were just, it was like zap, we were there, and next thing I knew, I was standing before this golden light, and I had to adjust my eyes because the light was so bright. And the next thing I knew I was before God. And I said to him, this is incredible, this is fantastic. This is not like taking drugs or drinking or trying to take something to get high on, but this was a super, super high that no one on earth has ever felt. So I was trying to compare the feeling that I had.
Right.
And the next thing I knew, I started bathing in his light. And I was on my knees, and I was laying backwards, kind of, and I was bathing in his light, and it was a warm, soft glow that kind of went all the way through me, and it was just this wonderful warmth. And about every second, a split second, I'd come off, and I kept asking him, because being a nurse and working in the medical field, I kept asking him, how does one's body feel this way? And I then I'd lay back, and of course he wouldn't say anything to me. And
I'm going to interrupt a minute, Patricia, because we were talking a few nights ago. We started laughing, and I want to tell you, I love Patricia. She is such a sweetheart. And it was comical because she said the first time this happened, she could not stop talking to God, and she was and she was just like going on and on and on and on and like blah, 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 you know, and all these questions for him and stuff. And the second time here, as you could see, he wouldn't answer her. He put her back down, and it was like. We were chuckling about that. She's like, I think I spoke too much, and he didn't want me to talk this time. But we were laughing, and I thought I was the only one who talked so much. So now I don't feel alone.
Yeah, in fact, my sister told me, she goes, my sister goes, I think I kicked you out of heaven because you talk too much. I could possibly be Linda because I did. I just went on and on and on. Okay, and after. He was healing me is what God was doing, and finally after the healing process, which took a very long time, then we joined together in the union, and that was just so incredible. And we joined together, and it was almost like melded right into God's Spirit. And it was like the 4th of July. There was colored lights going off around us and everything, and it was. I've never had the love, which is fantastic, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But it was great. And anyway, that process went on for a very long time also. And then the next thing I knew, like I said, a newborn child, like I was a little girl, and God was this giant. And it's like he took my hand and he walked me over to the very edge, I said, of the universe. And it's like he took his hand and arm just waved like that, and the whole ream below us just came unveiled, and I could hear the sound of water, and like water running over rocks, and I looked down because it was very deep, looking way down there, and the next thing I know, I saw a valley with really rich green grass, and there was probably about a dozen lambs and sheep grazing in the valley, and so I assumed this is the valley of the shadow of death, and the next thing I knew, God took me down beside the brook, and he left me alone. And then he had a golden path waiting for me, and I walked through this path, and on both sides of me were flowers and green plants, and they were just so beautiful. There's all, all different kinds of flowers and plants, and they were all different colors, and the lights was just glowing off from each one. And there was like fields and fields and fields of flowers, and I kept walking through this path, and then again, my mom came around the corner, and she told me she was happy, and she was just so beautiful, and I wanted to talk to her more, but she was only there for a split second, and then she was gone. And then I kept walking through the path, and the next thing I knew, down the valley, there was probably, I'd say, about 12 greeters greeting me. And there was women coming down one side and men and women going up on the other side. And they were American pioneers from the early 1800s. And the women were dressed in long brown dresses, and they had on brown bonnets that tied under their chins. And the main greeter that was coming down, she had her arm and hand extended out to me. But I stood there for the longest time waiting for them to come down, and you have to have patience in heaven. Everything is not real quick like it is here on earth. And because they were like gliding and up above the ground about 12 inches in slow mode coming down that hill, and it just seemed like it took them forever. But once they got down there, the lady had her arm and her hand extended out, and she had on, this is what God showed me, the cholesterol bodies, made of flesh and bone. Well, one half of her side was flesh color and was kind of a orangey red color flesh, and the other side was bone, and around her nose and eyes was not filled out yet, so it was like bone-like, and I could see right through her eyes, and it was really black and dark, but I could tell there was a spiritual being in there. And then their dresses, the women's dresses, I was like really felt like I was face to face with these people. The women's clothing was made out of some type of cotton, and the men, they had on suits, and they were really shiny like silk, and they had pinstriping, and they were also brown, and the women's dresses were brown too. And some of the men had top hats on, and the other ones did not. And then the next thing I saw was a whole row of trees, and they were huge, just gigantic. And they had all different kinds of leaves on them, heart-shaped, diamond-shaped. And then I also saw dogs, and they were running around in circles, I would say about 5, and they were chasing each other's tails.
Nice.
And I'm thinking, okay. And then the next thing, I was finished walking on the path and saw more plants, and then I heard female voices, and I said there was 2, and they said this in harmony. They said, you can't stay. And I'm thinking, what? I can't stay in a beautiful place like this. And they said it 3 or 4 times, and I just ignored the voices. And they kept telling me, and finally I went back to the light. And I was thinking, well, if I can't stay, I'm going to try to soak in all this warmth I can get from this light.
Right,
and
right.
So it's bathing back into the light again, and then that is when God spoke to me.
Awesome. Now, Patricia, a couple of interesting things. And I know I've read Sylvia Browne's books too, and you kind of confirmed this for me when we talked the other night. Also, from what you saw, is that everybody over there is between like their mid to late teens up to their early 20s. When you're
right.
there, and the interesting thing that you had stated also was that, you know, if a young child or a baby passes on, they quickly grow to that age. Now,
right.
And I believe what I've read and what I've heard too is that is a favorable age pretty much for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's like some of the best times of their life. And so they tend to be back at that age when you cross over, you go to that age. And that's pretty much
right.
what you saw. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. And I also wanted to tell you, there's like announcement centers in heaven, and that's why when everyone passes on and they go through the veil and their family members are waiting for them, it's because they're announced, and they have bandstands there. And so when they announce whatever relative is coming through, or even if it's someone that, somebody might know, it's not like a pastor or something, they're right there to greet that person. And so I was going to finish going on with the second near-death experience. When God spoke to me, I now came face to face with this wonderful golden light, and then God spoke to me. I will never forget his voice. God suddenly spoke with a deep voice, very deep, deep voice that could be heard all through the kingdom. It was a voice of authority. All their sounds stopped, and there came a quietness, a holy hush over the kingdom, and God began to speak. It was glorious. You could feel the glory love that come out of him. Words cannot express this. You could feel his deep, loving compassion. We cannot comprehend the capacity of God. He will do everything in his word. It was awesome. God then spoke directly to me. He thought, with all this knowledge that I put within you, will you write a book and pass it on to others? I will be sending you back to earth for this mission. And I couldn't speak. It took me 3 times to get all the words out to tell God that I would do this with all my heart if that is what he wished of me. And I was stuttering the words because I was so shocked that the Lord had asked me to do this mission. And I didn't know if I should bow to him or kiss the Lord's feet or pass out. But by that time, I felt like I did not feel worthy to stand or look at the Lord, but he told me that he loved me, and I was not judged by him for any wrongdoings, but was given so much love. He told me that his desire for me was to tell the people the glorious things that he has shown me, and to tell them the glorious things that he has made for them so that they might want to come here. He said, I have chosen you for this mission above all others. he also asked me if I would share this pure love with others on earth. The power of God just knocked me out almost straight down, but somehow I stood on my feet. I was glowing with light and given unbelievable peace and tranquility, and that was very indescribable. I'm ready to, then I told God, that I was ready to serve him if that is what he wished of me, and almost instantly I heard his voice again, and he also said, I desire for you to tell my people about this place called heaven. Then God said that he wanted me to share the pure love with others on earth, and this is the only thing that would be bringing the world together. And he told me to tell my people to believe and prepare yourselves and get ready, because I am coming soon for all of us that might want to go with him to the place called heaven. And, you don't have to be any certain type of religion or go to church or anything like that. Just believe in your heart and confess with your mouth, and you will be saved. And you can do your praying anywhere. And so I have wrote the book, which God had asked me to do. In fact, just before my return, he said, you can write and you can draw in black and white. And so I have done, exactly what he had asked me to do, and I am passing the knowledge to others. And by serving God, I am giving hope to those who have lost it and inspiration to those who are seekers on the path. I could help humanity by inspiring them to rise above their weaknesses and all obstacles and guide them on the path of life. And God is identical with truth, that he is, even though the world may deny him. God told me, if you need me, call me, and I am here to guide you. My light will illuminate your soul along with my lifetime. And then he started to get me ready to go back to end up and go back to Earth. And like I told you on the phone, he had me wound up like a spring on a clock. And I never went so fast in my whole life. As fast as I went to heaven, I was getting ready to go back to Earth. But he took me over. Was
that a scary experience, Patricia? I'm sorry. But was that a scary experience?
Actually, no, it wasn't. But like I said, if we would have ran into the spiritual beings here on Earth, like I thought, we probably wouldn't have ran ahead. But anyway, I was not afraid. And so before my return back, he let me view myself in a mirror. And it was like a 3 full mirrors put together. And what I saw, I just couldn't believe. And I took a glance, and I turned my head away. And because I felt that I was not worthy of how he had me, he actually had me dressed. And in the mirror, what I saw was this beautiful angel. And I had long, blonde, wavy hair, and my face was turned to the left. You could see a little bit of cheek on the right side. And I had on a white linen dress, and it was one piece and no seams down over my head, and it had a design around the sleeves and around the dress, which was V-shaped designs. And he said that stood for victory. And I also had a golden rope that was tied around my waist with a knot like in front, and the ends were hanging down, one a little bit longer than each other. And I could not see my arms or my legs. They were transparent. And then the next thing I knew, I wanted to cry, but there's no tears in heaven. Maybe it was tears of happiness. But the next thing I knew, I was going from plane to plane to plane until I come back into my body, and that was like, woof, and I kind of sat up and took a deep breath, gasped for breath, and by that time it was almost 8 in the morning. So I'd say 4 hours of Earth time had passed away, and I felt like I put my hand up to my left cheek because it felt as though there was a burn mark there, and actually it was God's light, and you can see in all my photos. I submitted my photo for my book 3 times, and they kept telling me the light won't come out, and I told them the light will not come out of my photos because it is God's light, and so they put the photo in the book anyway, and you can kind of see it in there. But I came back, and like I said, I went through my whole near-death experience. I flushed my medication down the toilet, and I didn't sleep only an hour for almost close to a month. And I go,
that's what you were saying. Is that because you were scared?
Yeah, off. I said, if God wants me, He could take me anytime. I said, so I started getting a little bit more sleep. And after that, I kept going through my near-death experience, and I was searching out for help, and it actually took me from 1998, from the time I had my near-death experience until my book came out in 2004, to search and look for help. And
that's what you were saying, is that because of you live in a rural community,
right,
and rural area, and there really isn't much available within your area or your community without going outside of it, and that takes quite a bit of time and travel to be able to do that. So,
right.
So you started something. You started your own support group.
Right. Well, I noticed the International Association for Near-Death Studies, they sent me some information and a contact person from Michigan, and I talked to a lady in Detroit a couple times, and she kind of sent me some information, and Island sent me a whole bunch of pamphlets and stuff, and then I started seeking out ministers, which they didn't know a whole lot about that. And then, I found a therapist, a craniosacral therapist, and actually he is in my book. He wrote a chapter in there, and it tells all about my therapy and the outcome of that and how he helped me and took me back to my death and everything. And right after that is when I wrote my book, and everything just started coming out in volumes. I was overlapping words and sentences and all of that, and I found a sketch artist, and she did the illustrations for my book. I have 10 photos from heaven, and they're in my book, and she did the front and back covers. And on the back of my book is a picture of the main greeter of the greeting party, and she just did a wonderful job. And so my book, and I wrote my book and had everything completed, and it was published in 3 months. I wrote over half of the book in 6 days.
Wow.
And, now that book is out, and I have started another book, which is a continuation from the first, and hopefully that will be out soon. And then also I had a documentary film, and that is in the process of being put out too also.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then after all of this, God decided He was going to give me some gifts, which I didn't expect. Well, then I started this traveling, where I left my body every single day, this astral traveling, and I went back to heaven for 3 years straight. And that was another thing. These gifts were coming at a very rate of speed, and I really need to get some help, because all I was thinking about was everything that was going on, and then other things, I couldn't concentrate on everyday living. And so finally, after the book was written and I started talking more about it, things started to get a little bit better. And then I go, well, I don't want other people to go through what I went through, so I started a near-death group, of course, on Facebook, and I had about 1,600 members. And because I didn't write in it daily, a lot of the people got their books, their groups removed off Facebook. So I transferred before that happened. I did transfer my notes to my wall notes on Facebook, and so my story is all there also if anybody's interested in going in there and reading it. But my book is available at Barnes & Noble, Author House, and Amazon.com if anyone is interested in purchasing that. And let me see.
I have a question. For you. The greeter that met you, was that an angel? Was that an archangel? Was that Archangel Azrael?
The main greeter in the greeting party?
Yes. Was that Archangel Azrael?
They were all American pioneers, all of them.
Because Archangel Azrael is known as the angel of death, and the primary role is to help souls cross over and supply comfort and to the grieving. A gentle and beautiful being, Azrael is the angel who accompanies souls to heaven after they have passed on. And I was just kind of curious if that is possible, what you saw, because sometimes, I don't know if you've seen, like, The City of Angels. Have you watched that movie at all?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, that's like one of my favorite movies. And, you know, they can be, you know, they show them as being plainclothes.
Right.
You know, and they kind of guide you and carry you over. And, you know, that's known as Archangel Azrael.
Well, this very possibly could be. I have no idea. All I know is what I saw, and and I had to go in and mentally describe the people and what I saw in heaven to the sketch artist, and she was just wonderful. She had these little tiny boxes, and that's all she had. And she hardly put any notes in them, and within a week, she called me, and she goes, "Your illustrations are done." And I went to her, and oh my God, I started crying. They're identical to exactly what I had saw in heaven. And this woman is just wonderful. I just couldn't understand how she could do all of this. And so I have no idea who the people were that greeted me, and all I know, it was just a group of men and women, you know, and how they were dressed, and other than that, I have no idea. Right. I'm still trying to make sense of everything, and so, you know, when I came back, I felt younger, and, you know, because I didn't have to have home health care anymore. I could now do things for myself. Get up and do things. And I had an appointment scheduled with a specialist, which took months in advance to get it. And when I went in, they go, "Sign in, please." And I go, "I don't think so." I brought them one of my books. And they were so excited. And, nice.
I want to do a shout out here, Patricia, if we can, to Boston Angel 09. She's one of my fabulous followers and one of my beautiful angel friends. And I also have a caller on the phone, area code 562. And hello, area code 562. This is Reneé, and may I ask who's calling?
Hello.
Hello. Can I have your name, please?
Steve.
Steve. Hi, Steve. Steve, did I talk to you last week?
I think so.
All right. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome. Do you have a question for Patricia, Steve?
No, I was just listening.
Okay. Feel free to listen in then. This is awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah.